This video is brought to you by Terrainify. I spent the last month making this massive city board. This week, I just want to make something little, just like a little tiny quick craft. So that's what we're doing today. Quick craft. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. My name is Garmin. This, of course, is the Storycraft Society, and this week, like I said in the intro, over the last month, I built big, like massive, like huge. So this week, I want to make small, little, fun, quick. So we're doing a quick craft. My plan is that I want to make a little signpost. Nothing terribly exciting, but I'm going to try and pack it full of little details, perfect for a crossroads encounter or just as a little piece of scatter terrain that could go anywhere on a bigger scene. I started by cutting out a base for it out of heavyweight chipboard, and the next thing that I'm going to do is dive on down to the mat and start crafting this thing up. Let's get into it. So I started this off by taking out a little thing of bricks that I already had made up, and I started laying them out in a square pattern with the intent of building that up to be a little kind of like stone brick base for my signpost. This is going to do two things. One, it's going to give the actual post itself strength so that it doesn't fall over easy, but also it's going to look decorative and have a nice focal anchoring to the rest of the piece. The next thing that I did, because I want the foam to be nice and sturdy, is I'm going to put a layer of Blackmagic Craft base coat over the whole thing, which is just a 50-50 mixture of matte Mod Podge and black acrylic craft paint. I'd put that over the whole thing, top and bottom. It gives me a nice flat, even coat, but also it's going to strengthen that foam up because of the Mod Podge. And also, now that I have that black flat coat on there, I will be able to paint the stone up later to make it look perfectly the way that I want it to. After I did that, then it was time to move on to the two big accents that I'm going to put on this piece. Now, these are crazy hard things that I got. I went out into my yard and I found a stone and I found a little twig. That's it. And I'm going to take those and drop them on. The reason that I put them on after I did the Blackmagic Craft base coat is because they already look like rocks and sticks. I don't have to paint them. It saves me a step later. This is intended to be a quick craft, so I just want to drop them on and have them ready to go right away. And I hot glued them into place exactly how I wanted them. Next up is I pulled out my Vallejo Eastern Mud texture paste. Now this stuff is great because again, it looks just like dirt, but you don't have to paint it. So that's gonna go over the entire base to look like a layer of mud. And then after that was done, I had to let it dry. So I went and got lunch, and when I came back, it was ready for flock. So for flock, I brought out 3 colors, but I ended up only using 2. So the first one that I brought out was Green Blend by Woodland Scenics. The next one that I brought out was Burnt Grass by Woodland Scenics. And the final one that I brought out and didn't use was my Storycraft blend, which is a mixture of 3 different flocks from Woodland Scenics. I just didn't feel like the piece needed that extra layer. I could always add it later if I wanted, but for now, I don't think I need that. So what I did was I put a little bit of the green turf into a cup, mixed that up with some watered down PVA glue, as well as just regular Elmer's PVA glue, and put it all over the base in small sections. Now this is important because I'm going to be using 2 different colors of green for my grass. I want there to be variety and it not just look like a flat green. I don't want this to look like a perfectly manicured lawn. I want it to look like something that has grown up over time on some crossroads off in the wilderness. The way that you can get that is by using different colored flocks and putting them in patches. So once I finished the patchiness of the green blend, then I moved over and did patchiness of the burnt grass, making sure to put the burnt grass over top of the green blend because the lusher green grass would be down underneath and the more dried out grass would be up on top. That's got to sit and dry because I have all that PVA glue in with my flocks, but that's a perfect time for me to move on now to start working on my signpost. Welcome to an episode of Single Terrain Piece Encounter sponsored by Terrainify, where I am going to give you an encounter that you can run with one singular piece of terrain. All right, so let's dive into it. So this encounter is called Goblin Lookout Hills. So what the setup is going to be is that your players are going to be trying to get to a tribe of goblins who have been up to some nefarious deeds. The characters are going to have to get through this Goblin Scout Hill to be able to move on to the next part of their mission, but they got to deal with them first. Now, there's two special things you need to remember to run this encounter. The first one is that there is a special goblin. He's like the little goblin scout leader, and he is wearing a ring of burrowing. That will allow him to crawl through the dirt back and forth in the hill to really harrow whichever character is deserving of being harrowed. The next thing that you need to remember is don't forget your acrobatics and athletics checks for your players to successfully climb up on top of the hill. The goblins aren't going to come down. They got the high ground. They're just going to plunk their little bows down onto the characters, and the characters are going to have to deal with that. So don't forget to make the characters work for it with their acrobatics and athletics checks. So if you would like to run this encounter, you can actually pick up this exact piece of terrain from Terrainify at their website, terrainify.com, or the Terrainify Etsy store. You can get the product 3D printed in absolutely excellent quality, or you can get the piece fully finished so that it goes straight from the box onto your game table and you are running the Goblin Lookout Hill encounter in no time. If you're interested in this, please check out Terrainify and the awesome products that they're putting out. And thank you for sponsoring this week's video, Terrainify. One last thing I almost forgot is that Terrainify gave all Storycraft viewers 25% off on Terrainify.com and on the Terrainify Etsy store. All you have to do is enter the promo code Storycraft25 to get your 25% off. So just one more time, that is all caps, Storycraft25 to get 25% off on Terrainify.com and the Terrainify Etsy store. I'll link all that stuff down in the description below if you want to check it out, but otherwise, let's get back to the video. Now, to make my signpost, I pulled out 4 different types of craft sticks. I pulled out skinny sticks, I pulled out matchsticks, I pulled out popsicle sticks, and then I pulled out coffee stirrers. Now, the reason that I did 4 different ones is because I wanted my signs to seem different in size, so it didn't look like a uniform, well-made piece. I wanted it to look like something that had been built over the years and added to and taken away from. So the way that I put those all together is I clipped them all to size. Of course, I made sure to get my post sized up next to a mini, and then I tried to make my signs as varied as possible, some of them by cutting them, some of them by breaking them, and then I laid out the order in which I was going to put them onto the piece. For that, I'm going to be using super glue. Super glue just works really well for me and wood, so I just put a couple of dots on for each sign, drop them in where they go, let that dry, and then it was time to move on to paint. Okay, so I feel like the next part is going to be the trickiest part, because really to sell this little, crossroads sign, the signs need to be cool. I'm gonna move that so it doesn't crinkle. The way that I think that I'm gonna do that is by first doing a couple of different colors of paint for the signs. So specifically, I'm gonna be doing a black one where I'm gonna be using a micron pen, a real fine tipped micron pen to do that. And then I'm also gonna be using a very fine tipped brush, and I'm gonna try to freehand some lettering on there. And then that's gonna be in white paint. I'm gonna use miniature paint for that because I figure it's going to do a little better. And then the other way that I'm going to keep the age of the different signs varied is I'm gonna start by painting some of the writing on before I do my stain over the entire wood piece. And then the other ones I'm going to do afterwards. So the ones that I do afterwards will look like fresher paint, and the ones that I do before I put the brown paint on for the actual stain of the wood will look like older paint. That's at least my idea. So I'm gonna start to work on it, and let's see what we get here. So once I got all of the painting done on the signpost, it looks like this. And I'm actually really, really pleased with the way that it looks in some ways, but in other ways, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. My freehand work is trash. It's just absolute garbage. Now, there's good news here, which is the only way that you're gonna get better at doing freehand work is to do freehand work. But with that said, this is a rattier signpost than I intended it to be because my freehand has to make it ratty. So it is what it is. I will practice that and I will get better. That's how it goes. But for right now, I'm calling it what it is. My freehand work is trash. That's all I can do for right now, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break, just a couple of hours, so that I can make sure that all of my flock dries nice and solid before I move on to the next bit. But the next bit, I can actually just predict it right now what it's going to be. I have 2 more steps that I have to do. The first one is I'm going to have to get all of my block painted up so that it looks like stone. That's going to be really easy. I'm going to use a charcoal base coat. That's going to be followed by a wet overbrushing of a medium gray, followed by a light dry brushing of a light gray. Specifically, I'm going to be using elephant gray in this case. That's going to get all of my edges nice and highlighted up. And then the final thing that I have to do as far as the construction of the piece goes is I'm going to glue my signpost down in. Now I am going to add a bunch of tufts to this because I really want the piece to pop and get a little bit of flowery color. But other than that, the whole thing will be done. And the next time I see you, we'll be at the outro. And there you have it. The quick craft is all finished up. And I can say I wasn't rushing through this, and I think it only took me 3.5 hours, so that is definitely a delightful start to finish for me, particularly after doing the city board. I was actually kind of joking with Olivia, and I told her this project was like 40% more fun than I had in the last bit of doing the city board, and whereas the city board is certainly way more impressive, this one is fun. It's quick. You get an idea and you do it, and then after the idea is done, you put it in practice, and then you have a thing. And I think it's cute as heck. Just a cute little sign. It'll make a fun piece of scatter terrain. It might not get the most table time ever because it's kind of specific, but hey, who cares? It will be perfect to throw out anytime I need it. So, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, definitely hit the like button down below. Leave a comment of something that I could do to improve it, or something that you would do different, or just say hi. Comments are great. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. And if you want to help the channel out in the #1 way, please share this video with a friend that you think would enjoy it. That helps a small YouTube channel grow so quickly. And for all of you that have been doing that, I can't say thank you enough. So with that said, that's all for this week. Until next time, I'll be seeing you.